Bookish friends, welcome to my December 2020 wrap-up part 2. In this video, I'm first going to talk about how I did in the whole month of December by giving my book list statistics, and then wrap up the 7 works that I finished in the last half of December. So let's start with the statistics. I read a total number of 12 works in December. I read 3 historical fiction, 2 chicklet/romance, 2 non-fiction, 1 science fiction, 1 mystery, 1 fantasy, 1 thriller, and 1 horror book. I read a total number of 3021 pages. I read 3 works less than 100 pages, 2 works between the pages of 100 and 200, 3 works between 300 and 400 pages, 2 works between 400 and 500 pages, and 1 book between 500 and 600 pages. My average page number per book was 268.42. As for publishing dates, I read 1 work published in 1800s, 1 work published between 1900 and 1910, 1 work published in 1930s, 1 work published between the years 2000 and 2010, 2 works published between years 2011 and 2015, and 6 works published between the years of 2016 and 2019. As for original language, I read 9 books originally written in English, 2 books originally written in Turkish, and 1 book originally written in Japanese. For the format of the books, I read 7 novels, 1 short story, 1 graphic novel, 1 novella, 1 essay collection, and 1 memoir. All 12 of the books that I read were targeted towards adults, and I listened to 6 audiobooks. I read 5 ebook and 1 paperback. This was the only month in 2020 which I read more audiobooks than ebooks. And as for ratings, I gave 1 book 6 out of 10, 5 books 7 out of 10, 5 books 8 out of 10, and 1 book 9 out of 10. My average rating for December was 7.5 out of 10. So, in terms of reading, it was a very good month. I mostly enjoyed what I read very much. The first book that I finished in the second half of December was My Not So Perfect Life by Sophie Kinsella. I buddy read this book with Emily at Novelle Novels, Gaia at Gaia Athena, and Sara at Sara MG Reads. It was a really great buddy reading experience again. I think this was a very good example of a woman's fiction novel. It mainly focused on the personal growth and development of the main female character, and how she learned that she had to make the best out of her life. In order to have a sort of perfect life, she has to be herself, not somebody else. I really like that aspect of the book. On the other hand, I really had a hard time believing the romantic story, the love story, and that's why I gave this book 7 out of 10. I then finished my last book for Stacking the Series Challenge, Anything for You by Kristan Higgins. So this was the 5th and the last book in Blue Heron series, which mainly takes place in a small town, and the characters occur in multiple books. This book told the life story between Connor and Jessica. I both liked the main characters very much. Their stories individually were very interesting. Their family history, ties that they had with my beloved Holland family, which is my favorite family of the Blue Heron series. Like I did with Connor's twin sister Colin's story, I found the love story not very impressive. Especially in this love story, there were so many breaks up that it really made me wonder why they were so stuck with each other. As I've said before, they were good characters, but I did not think that they were suitable for each other. But because of the wonderful backstories of the characters, I also gave this book a 7 out of 10. I then finished a book which I found really hard to identify the genre of the book. Himself by Jess Kid. I read this book with Veronica from Vee Reads and Rambles. I read many books with her, and I have to admit, in this time, our buddy reading experience was much better than the book. This book can be identified as paranormal mystery, magical realism, or fantasy or horror. I don't know, but I thought the main aspect of the book was the mystery part, and that's why I considered this a mystery. But it's a mixture of genres, as I said before. I thought this book had a very good potential to be an awesome mystery because the mystery was very interesting, and because of the paranormal aspect of the book, I sort of had a hard time identifying who the killer was. And it followed the tropes of mystery actually very, very well. So it was both different but also familiar to me as a traditional mystery reader. On the other hand, maybe because it was the first novel of the author, I sort of felt very annoyed with the tempo of the book. Sometimes it was very fast-paced and very interesting to read, but especially in the middle parts, the story dragged on and on about the creepiness of the town, which was actually described very well, but it was actually an overdose of paranormal aspects, which had nothing to do with the mystery. So I felt really conflicted about this book. I also gave that book a 7 out of 10 because it was actually a very good mystery at core. And the last book that I read for my reading goals of 2020 was Life After Life by Atkinson. It was a book that I gave a second chance to. I previously DNF'd this book, I think about 3 years ago. When I joined BookTube, I've heard so many good things about this book. And actually, Veronica herself told me she had also DNF'd the book, but gave it a second chance and really enjoyed the book very much. And that was exactly my experience with the book. This book tells the story of Ursula Todd, in which she lives her life over and over. The story takes place between the years of 110 and 160, I think. I actually rolled my eyes at the point in which I DNF'd the book, 17%, and I was like, oh no, not again. But then I remembered all the good things that were told about this book and kept on going. And by the 21st attempt, I was hooked into the story. So my advice for anyone who wants to read this book, please go to at least 20%, and if you still did not like it, then of course you can DNF it. The story after that point became very emotional and very strong, and had very strong messages about the hardships of war, the reality of being a very clever and well-educated woman in the first half of 20th century. And the book also had very endearing side characters, such as her sister and brother and her father. This was the only book that was a success in my project of giving the books a second chance, and I gave the book an 8 out of 10. Then I decided to read the book that I was waiting for a long time in my TBR. And the book was given as a recommendation to me by a work friend of mine. But I was hesitant to read it because it was a much later book in the series. Bir Sırrım Var by Tess Gerritsen, which has an original title of I Have a Secret. This is the 12th book Rizzoli and Isles detective series. Although I struggled with some of the backstories that was mentioned in the book, I really enjoyed the thriller aspect of the book, and I read it very fast, and maybe it was because it was in Turkish, of course, but the story was really engaging, and I could not guess the plot twist, which was very impressive considering I read a lot of mysteries when I was young. So I gave this thriller a high 8 out of 10, and I will certainly read this series in the future, and I will start, of course, from the beginning to understand some of the backstories that were mentioned in this book. I then listened to a Turkish book, which I will evaluate more in my Turkish shelf project in January. Ninatta'nın Bileziği by Ahmet Ümit, which has an English title of Ninatta''s Bracelet, the exact translation actually. It was a very interesting book. I'm glad I listened to it as an audiobook, because I have trouble with books written in verse, and I found out that I understood it perfectly when I listened to it. It tells a story that was written to tablets in Hittite times, and it was the story was told from the point of view of a noble woman who has been in a sort of cursed love story with another nobleman who is older than her and married. Although I found the story to be extremely interesting, I gave this book a 6 out of 10. I think you might like it a bit better than mine if you like classical tragedies, because the story takes place in prehistoric times, and the stories coming from that era are very dramatical and sometimes overly emotional. It was appropriate that this book should be overly dramatic, but unfortunately I never liked classical tragedies. I found them to be overly dramatic and sometimes a bit funny actually. At least I didn't find this book funny. Well, I can say that if you like classical stories and classical tragedies, I think you will like this book very much. And as I've said before, I will explain more about this book in my Turkish shelf video in January. After finishing Ninatta'n's Bracelet, I still had one day left to read books, and I did not want to start a long book. So I read the shortest work on my TBR, which was The Yellow Paper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. After posting my video of my top 5 shortest books on my TBR, I've heard so many praises about this short story. After listening to this short story, I was like, wow, what did I just listen? How can a story can be told in so few words, so proficiently? I felt a very big respect for the author in that manner, and also the story was very interesting and very creepy. And because we were in the mind of the protagonist, it became more and more creepy, and that factor gradually was increased, which was fantastic, considering this short story only had 28 pages in my Kindle edition, but as I've said before, I listened to it as an audiobook. All of my friends who praised this short story were so right. So I finished the month with a new favorite story, and I gave that short story a 9 out of 10, which was the highest rated work in December. So those were the works that I finished in December. Please comment down below what was the last book that you finished in December, and did you like it like I did? And if you're a new viewer, please like and subscribe. Hope to see you very soon. Bye! Turkish word of the day. Since my favorite work of December was The Yellow Wallpaper, I thought wallpaper should be the word of the day. Wallpaper means duvar kağıdı in Turkish, and duvar kağıdı are our Turkish words of the day. Have a good day.